It takes a lot to grow your business, everybody. A lot of audience attracting, a lot of lead scoring, and all the channel managing you can manage. Plus a lot of long days, late nights, and weekends. We all know that. A lot wishing there was an easier way. But with Breeze, HubSpot's new collection of AI tools, it's easier than ever for marketers to attract audiences, increase leads, and score customers super fast. Which means pretty soon your company will have a lot to celebrate. So get to celebrating. Visit HubSpot.com/marketers to learn more. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday, January 31st. I'm John Weigell here with Mark Dent, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. The biggest in-person book chain in the U.S. fell on hard times quite a bit ago, but now the company has a fresh look and a new line of excited customers that are ready to read. Barnes & Noble is somehow thriving in the chronically online world, and they're doing so well that we just had to talk about their return to power today. We'll get into all that, but before we do, let's give you the news in business and tech. To start us off, a Manalapan, Florida mansion broke the record for the most expensive new home for sale in the United States. The catch, though, is it hasn't been built yet. The $285 million house next door to Larry Ellison's estate will include over 50,000 square feet, complete with a bowling alley, car museum, spa, and a shooting range. Happy homeownership in Florida. What do you think about this, Mark, the new mansion in town?
For $285 million, I honestly feel like it should be a lot better compared to what they're saying. A boathouse, a bowling alley. And it's not like those are small potatoes or anything like that. But I mean, we're talking $285 million, not $85 million.
Sure.
And it's hard for me to imagine like any of that stuff coming together to cost $200 million plus. I think this person should get more bang for their buck.
Yeah, $285 million per square foot at 50,000 square feet. Still a lot of money for a home. And next, even though the car industry is rapidly changing week to week, much of it stays the same because Toyota, for the fifth year in a row, takes the title of the world's best-selling automaker. The Japanese company sold an impressive 10.8 million vehicles in 2024, but just to note, those overall sales were down 3.7% from about 11 million in 2023. And from there, we go to AI. AI content is tricking America's teens, according to a new study from nonprofit advocacy group Common Sense. Out of about 1,000 teens surveyed, 35% said they've been deceived by fake content online, and 41% said they encountered real yet misleading content. Plus, 22% said they had shared information with others that turned out to actually be fake. And to that I ask, if the youths can be duped, who can't these days? It's getting scary. And next we go to the IRS. The IRS is catching up to your side hustle, unfortunately. It's officially cracking down on money made through eBay, Facebook Marketplace, Venmo, Airbnb, Etsy, you kind of name it online. And they're doing it through the form 1099-K for 2024 tax purposes. And if you've made $5,000 or more, it's time to pony up for the IRS. What do you think about this, Mark? They're going after the online incomes.
Well, I think it's also time for people to go back to Craigslist then. You know what I mean? Like if you want to have a side hustle that you don't owe taxes on, then you should do Craigslist and you should be paid in cash.
Yeah.
It's a new strategy here for the IRS. They've made a little bit of changes to their 1099, which is what's going to like maybe make it a little bit easier for them to track some of these online sales. But like if you've been transacting things over like the internet over $5,000 and with a credit card, you probably should have been paying taxes or being very worried.
You got a paper trail.
But if you're on Craigslist, it's like just sell it to the guy.
That's right.
The guy who comes and he'll give you cash. Done.
That's right. No paper trail. And, you know, the crazy thing about this to me is that $5,000, sure, it sounds like a lot, but in the 2025 tax year, it's going to get a little lower to about $2,500. And then the next year after that, it's going to go down to $600.
Yeah, that's getting a little low. I will say that. Come on, $600, like whatever.
Pinching pennies at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. For the skateboard I bought off Facebook Marketplace for $15. Come on now.
Yeah.
And finally, as TikTok's future remains undecided, lots of investors are banking on another social media shopping startup. Apps like Whatnot and Shop My have both amassed incredible interest in the social commerce space with $265 million and $77.5 million funding rounds for each, respectively. Now, Mark, I know a little bit about this area of Whatnot specifically because they are kind of like a new-ish, I guess, live streaming shopping app. And it seems like the company's investors are more interested to see these popping up.
Yeah, I think like if TikTok starts to fade or, still ends up getting banned, which could still happen in a few more months, that you're going to just see a lot more of these sort of like niche social media apps that are easier to monetize. I think some of these more targeted type of apps that feel a little more like business-like yet still fun are potentially going to have a really good year as long as like that cloud continues to hang over TikTok anyway.
Yeah, totally. I mean, a lot of these apps give me new and updated QVC vibes, and maybe that's just what's going to take over the world at this point.
Yeah, and people loved QVC, man.
They did.
It just needs to come back in a different form.
That's right.
Hey, everybody. I've been listening to this awesome podcast lately. It's called Nudge, hosted by Phil Agnew. It's brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. So have you ever noticed how the smallest changes can have the biggest impact? On Nudge, you learn simple, evidence-based tips to help you kick bad habits, get that raise, and grow a business. Every bite-sized 20-minute show comes packed with practical advice from admired entrepreneurs and behavioral scientists alike. And Nudge is fast-paced, but still insightful with real-world examples that you can actually apply. Oh, and by the way, it's the UK's fastest-growing business podcast. I was listening to an episode recently that Phil, the host, had on Harvard professor Mike Norton, and Mike convinced Phil that he had to handwrite every single one of his emails before sending them to understand what he was really trying to talk about. This process, although it sounds insane, he claims, Phil, that it made his emails 3.5 times better. You got to listen to this podcast. It's a great way to understand how email marketing can help your business. You can listen to Nudge wherever you get your podcasts.
Okay, on to the main story. Speaking of TikTok, it seems the app had quite a hand in reviving America's largest brick-and-mortar bookstore, Barnes & Noble. So, Mark, pre-influencer, pre-pandemic, just how badly was Barnes & Noble doing?
It was doing very badly. Like by any way you could possibly describe bad, that's what Barnes & Noble was like. Other than Borders, because that was much worse.
Yeah.
The old rival of Barnes & Noble. But if you go back to the 90s, Amazon was on the rise, bookseller, and obviously became a lot more than that, but they were just books back then. And they started to really eat into Barnes & Noble's revenues as Borders' revenues as well. And, Borders died like in the 2010s. And Barnes & Noble survived, but it didn't do well. If you look at their revenue numbers that they reported, they were a public company back in the 2010s. From 2012 to 2019, their annual revenues dropped from $5.4 billion in 2012 to $3.48 billion in 2019. That's pretty consequential. Yeah. And it led to Elliott Management, a private equity firm, swooping in 2019 and buying it out.
Yeah, and it seems like, unlike a lot of companies that do get swooped up by private equity firms, that this time it may not have been such a bad thing after all, because some changes happened to the Barnes & Noble brand right around that time.
Oh, totally. And Elliott Management is very much a known entity in the investment community because they always kind of go after distressed assets and what are sometimes hostile takeovers. And they just come in and they make changes. And for Barnes & Noble, it's worked out really well. Elliott Management, they also own Waterstone Books in England. So they had some experience with books. And, according to Bloomberg, what Elliott Management essentially decided when they took over was like, the main reason why no one is going to these stores is not because people don't like to shop in stores. It's because these stores are terrible. Basically, Elliott Management came in and they just gave all of them like a complete makeover and really kind of localized the experience too for the Barnes & Noble store, even though it's this big national chain.
Right. They changed a lot of the interior, making it a bit more community friendly. If you've ever been to one, especially the one here in New York, at least in Union Square, you like to hang out there, right? You get a book, you maybe read it a little bit before you buy it. There's a cafe in there. It's kind of more community feel, something that Starbucks is desperately trying to get right now, that Barnes & Noble has kind of always had. And with this change in the interior design, how it looks, how it's organized, it's a little bit better. Also, what Elliott Management did is that they kind of erased some of the bad decisions that Barnes & Noble has made, because throughout the years, they've, increased their inventory from books to toys and games and items that weren't really traditional for a bookstore to carry. And they came back in and just doubled down on good old books. They put out some viral books from writers that are getting popular on the internet. They're very much more, it seems, in touch with the book culture now than ever.
Yeah, I mean, less is more. Just focus on books if you're a bookstore. And it certainly worked out here. Some of the Barnes & Noble employees, depending on which store you're in, a lot of the ones that I go to, I'll see like recommendations from the store employees, which
totally
was something that they didn't do just like several years ago. So it just feels so much more homey. And I think like the TikTok influencers who've, sometimes they'll like live broadcast their visits to Barnes & Noble, and obviously Book Talk, all that stuff helps too. But that gives it just an extra community bent, right? It's like you have your online community, and then you go to Barnes & Noble for your sort of in real life book community. And it's just been a really surprising success story. And the most surprising part of it is just that people are rooting for Barnes & Noble.
Yeah.
Whereas, as we know from You've Got Mail in 1996 or whenever that was, they were seen as the bad guy, the very bad guy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Now, people are kind of on the other side of it, rooting for a corporation to win, which is so backwards when you think about it.
Yeah, but local bookstores have been doing pretty well too, especially niche local bookstores. I've been sort of hearing that one of the more popular trends that we'll probably see in the next few years is that there's going to be a lot more bookstores that offer coffee and alcohol. Mm-hmm. They're basically bars combined with bookstores. Like those are really starting to take off.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody's getting in on it.
Yeah.
It's kind of this bookstore resurgence, and, partly to thank, right, for changing the atmospheres, but also partly to thank for this book talk situation of people learning about books that they want to buy online and then actually going to buy them. And Mark, there's one last thing that I did want to talk about here, because the stores of Barnes & Noble have exponentially increased. They've been opening way more stores than ever before.
Oh, yeah. I mean, according to Bloomberg, Barnes & Noble was opening fewer than 10 stores per year in 2018, 2019 or so. In 2023 and 2024, they've opened between 20 and 30 in 2023, and then nearly 60 last year. So, yeah, they've got a lot of plans. They're going to also open around 60 this year, too. So there's more Barnes & Nobles coming.
Yeah. For one, it's backed by a PE firm. Everything in the fiber of my being wants to hate it, but it's books. Who doesn't love books?
I agree, and I'm excited. And also CDs. I still buy CDs every once in a while for like the ones that I really want. And yeah, Barnes & Noble has those still.
Yeah, they got a great music section, I will say. I peruse sometimes. Yeah, so good for them. A feel-good story for Barnes & Noble, right?
Yes, definitely.
All right, and that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for tuning in to the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. Our editor is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clark. We've got way more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. If you're not subscribed, go sign up at thehustle.co/email and follow us on Instagram at The Hustle Daily. We'll see you Monday.
New year, new resolutions. And this year on the Best Idea Yet podcast, we're revealing the untold origin stories of the products you're obsessed with. And we promise you have never heard these before.
Ever wonder how the iconic Reese's Peanut Butter Cup was invented? Because it was by accident. H.B. Reese, a former frog salesman,
true story,
stumbled upon the idea after accidentally burning a batch of peanuts.
Classic.
Proving that sometimes our best ideas arise from what seem like our biggest mistakes.
And Jack, did you know there's a scientific explanation why humans crave that surprising combo of peanut butter and chocolate?
I didn't, but it sounds delicious.
It is delicious.
So, if you're looking to get inspired and creative this year, tune in to the Best Idea Yet. You can find us on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts.
And if you're looking for more podcasts to help you start this year off right, check out New Year, New Mindset on the Wondery app. Who knows? Your next great idea could be an accident that you burned. This is Nick.
And this is Jack.
And we'll see you on the Best Idea Yet.